All right, it's good to see you back. We are going to begin our second lecture. We have already seen in our last lecture towards the end that a computer or a calculator has some limits. There are some limitations to what it can do, what it can record, and so that's why there are some errors that we uh, could see in computer calculations or calculator calculations also. So there is this thing, it's a world of finite digit arithmetic. The computer world or the calculator world, it's a world of finite digit arithmetic. The arithmetics involves only finitely many digits. Although it's a very big set, but it's still a finite set. So let's try to understand a bit further. When we do arithmetic, when we do the arithmetic, say for instance in school or in colleges and so on, when we do it using pen and paper, we allow for infinitely many digits. Although we may not write them all down, but we understand that when you have, say, suppose 1 by 3, if you are looking at this kind of fraction, then we understand that this in decimal expansion, this means 0.33333, and it goes on. And this is denoted by putting a small bar on the recurring set of digits. So here 3 is the singleton which keeps recurring, and therefore there is a bar on above the head of this digit 3. Or we also understand that when we write root 3, and if we write its decimal expansion, then it's an infinite decimal expansion. That means it doesn't terminate. That's what we understand. In fact, many times we don't even go to the extent of writing the decimal expansions, because we work with the fraction 1 by 3, or we work with the number root 3. And those are the numbers we normally work with. But when we have to use the finite digit arithmetic of the computers and so on in the computational world, however, each representable number has only a fixed and finite number of digits. That's the limitations. And what this means is that the numbers that you can write down in a calculator or a computer, those are only the rational numbers, because you have only finitely many digits. Remember, rational numbers are fractions. They are of the type a by b, where b is a non-zero integer, and a and b are a is an integer and b is a non-zero integer. The a by b is the rational number. That's the thing we have. And so the numbers that you can write down using these finitely many digits, they are rational numbers, but not even all of these can be written down, and only some numbers can be represented exactly using this. However, it's a very large set. So for instance, since root 3 is not a rational number, what we will do is that it will be given an approximate representation. There will be a rational number which will be reasonably close to root 3. And when the calculator works with that, it will work with that particular approximation. So the square of that number will not be precisely equal to 3, but it will be very close to 3. So it is likely to be sufficiently close to 3 to be acceptable in most situations. So for instance, if you apply on a calculator, you take the number 3, you take its square root, you will get some number which in its decimal expansion, and then you take the square of this number, you are likely to get 3 back. But if you do it for some another complicated numbers, then this is unlikely to happen. Okay. So in most cases, then this machine arithmetic is satisfactory. For most of the cases that we have to work with, this is quite satisfactory and will pass without notice or concern. But at times problems will arise because of this discrepancy, that we don't have exact representation for the numbers that we work with. And so there is an error that is produced because of the finite, because of these approximations, and the error that is produced is called round off error. So we will see some examples of this kind of things, and this occurs precisely because the calculations are performed using approximate representations of the actual numbers that we have. We are not going to be doing the calculations with the actual numbers. We will be doing them with the approximations. That's why these errors come. And so if we want to understand the set, which is represented in the computer. This is, as we said, it contains only rational numbers, both positive and negative, because we should work with both positive and negative numbers. And there is a fractional part together with an exponential part. It's a very interesting way these things are written down. It's a binary expansion, really. So we will have a 64-bit representation. So there will be these binary digits, 64 many, and this representation is used for a real number. So out of those 64 bits that we have, the first bit, which is, so bits are either 0 or 1 being the binary digits. The first bit, that's a sign indicator. So if this first bit is 0, then the number that we get is a positive number. If the first bit is 1, then the number that you get is a negative number. So of course for 0 you will have both positive and negative representations. 0 is the only number which will have two possible representations in this way. Okay, so we have the first bit that will give you the sign. Then there are 11 bits, and they give you the exponent. The exponent is denoted by the symbol C, and we call it the characteristic. So remember, there are 64 bits. Out of those 64 bits, the first bit gives you the sign. So there are now 63 remaining bits. Out of them, 11 bits, the next 11 bits after the sign indicator, they indicate the characteristic. And that characteristic is the exponent of 2. Okay, it's the exponent of 2 that you get. And then you have the remaining 52 bits. That is the fraction that is denoted by small f, and it's called the mantissa. So we have the single first bit representing the sign. Next 11 bits together give you a binary expansion, a number in binary representation, binary expansion, and that is called the characteristic. So you are going to have this sign, then you have 2 power some number related to the characteristic, and then you have the fraction, which is the mantissa. So there are 52 bits for the fraction. So it's quite a large number actually, and it can represent quite a few numbers in this way. The base for the exponent is 2. So we have this C, and we are not going to take 2 power C because the exponent of the 11 binary digits, this will give a range from 0 to 2 power 11 minus 1. So if you have everything zeros in the 11 digits, 11 bits, then you are going to have the number 0. So that will give you 2 power 0, which is 1. Or you can have all 1. That's the highest number that you can represent with 11 bits. And that 1111 for all of those 11 bits will give you 2 power 11 minus 1. So which is 2047. So you can have 2 power 0 to 2 power 2047. This is the characteristic. This is the exponent that we get. But this will give you the numbers which have positive exponent. Right? So for exponent, if you use only positive numbers, then we will not have an adequate representation. Remember, we are using a sign indicator so that we have both positive and negative numbers. So when you are using something for the exponent, it's also good to use negative numbers for the exponent so that you can have 10. It's, you should be able to have 2 power minus 5, for instance. Only 2 power 0 to 2 power 2047 are not useful. You should also be able to have 2 power minus 5 or 2 power minus 2022, for instance. Right? So what we are going to do is that we are going to shift it. We will not be able to get 2 power minus 2022, but this 0 to 2047, the 2048, 2048 numbers, possible exponents, we will shift them so that it's somewhat symmetrical for both positive and negative side. Okay, so what we do is we subtract 1023 from the exponent, from the characteristic. So now, instead of 0 to 2047, we will be able to represent minus 1023 to 1024. Those many exponents are possible. Okay, and then you of course have the f, which is the mantissa, which will give you the remaining 52 bits. They give you the number f in the fraction form. And so what we get is the number of this form, minus 1 to the power s, 2 to the power c minus 1023. Remember why 1023 is subtracted from the characteristic? Because we want to have the exponents to be both positive and negative. And f is your fraction. So, excuse me. So when you have the bit, when you have binary expansion, it is typically given to be 2 power something plus 2, the next powers and so on. So instead of that, we are going to take the bits will be exponents of 1 by 2 and then 1 by 2 square and so on. So that's how we write it as a fraction. So this small f is a fraction for us, and this is the ultimate number that we write. So once again, s is the first singleton bit. If that is 0, our number is positive. If the s is negative, if s is 1, then our number is negative. Then the next 11 digits will tell you what the exponent of your number is, what the characteristic of your number is. And that C characteristic gives the exponent, but you adjust it so that you have a symmetric set of exponents which are represented. And ultimately you have this number 1 plus f. So let's see an example of some such machine number. But before we go to this example, we have 52 bits now left to write the number. And 52 bits typically correspond to 16 or 17 decimal digits. So we have that big set of numbers that we can write with this number. So we have with 52 bits. 52 is a large number if you are writing it in terms of the bits. You might have heard about this story that there was some king who became very happy with some small boy, and he said that he would be willing to give anything that the boy wishes. And the boy said, okay, I'll take this chess board, and then you put one grain of wheat in the first square of the chessboard, 2 grains in the second, 4 in the third, and so on. So you just keep doubling the number of grains. And by the time it reached the 32nd square or so on, the number of grains had grown huge to a huge number. So here we have 52 bits. And so 52 bits allow us to, it's a very big room to maneuver. So we can write down lots of numbers. And if you're looking at decimal expansion, then there are about 16 to 17 digits of decimal expansion. So here we can expect that our numbers that we are going to write down will have precision of 16 to 17 decimal places. That's how nice this is. Okay. So we will see some example now. Suppose we take this machine number. So there are lots of zeros, which is a good thing because otherwise it will be a very complicated number. We observe that there are some gaps. So there is this number 0, which is the first number. Then there is a small space, there is a gap. And then we have 11 bits. So it is 1, all 0, and then the last 2 are again 1. And after that, there is a gap, and then we have a 52-bit number. Okay, so let's see what this number tells us. The leftmost bit, which is S, that is 0. Therefore, the number is positive. Okay, our number is a positive number. We now come to the characteristic. So the next 11 bits, remember once again, first one is 1 and the last 2 are 1. Okay, all the in-between bits are 0. So what we are going to get, so whenever you have 11 bits, if you had a single bit, it would correspond to a multiple of 2 power 0. If you had 2 bits, it would correspond to something 2 power 0 and plus something 2 power 1. So when you have 11 bits, the first one will have to, the largest one will have to correspond to 2 power 10. So the characteristic that we get is 2 power 10, and then there are zeros, and then plus 2 and plus 1. So 2 power 10, remember that is 1024. You add 3 to that and you get 1027. So the characteristic number for our machine number that is given here is 1027. And the exponent that we are going to get is obtained by removing 1023 from this number. Okay. So that is 2 power 4. So we have positive number which will have the exponent 4, so it is 2 power 4, and now we have to work with the fraction with the remaining 52 bits. So let's write this number once again. And now we observe we are looking at only the mantissa. In the mantissa, which is a 52-bit number, the first one is 1, second is 0, third, fourth, fifth, they are 1. Then the next 3 are 0, and next 2 are 0, sorry. So 6th and 7th are 0, and then 8th is 1. And then the next 3 are 0, 12th is 1, and then all the others are 0, right? So the mantissa is 1 by 2 power 1. That's because our mantissa's first bit is 1. Then the third, fourth, fifth, they are 1. So we have 1 by 2 cube plus 1 by 2 power 4 plus 1 by 2 power 5. Then the 8th, 1 by 2 power 8 plus 1 by 2 power 12. Okay, that is our mantissa f. So therefore the represented number by this machine number is -1 to the power s 2 power c minus 1023, and then in the bracket you have 1 plus f, which is -1 power 0, which is a positive number, so we are going to ignore that -1 now completely. 2 power 4, and then you have 1 plus f. This, remember, f is something which is very close to 1 by 2. So 2 power 4, 2 square is 4 and 4 square is 16. So we get 2 power 4, which is 16, and then you have something which is roughly 1.5. So 16 into 1.5 is 24, and then there is some more fraction. So this number should be something which is slightly more than 24, and indeed it is 27.56640,625. So this is the number that we are able to write. So this machine number that we have, which is a 64-bit number, gave us the actual rational to be this 27.56640,625. This is how we will have a machine number representing an actual number, which we would typically write using our decimal expansion. Okay, so let's see what are the smallest and the largest representable numbers. So in fact, the smallest number, remember what we have is that we have here s, then we have c minus 1023 and 1 plus f. So whenever we are looking at the smallest number, so we will, let's say that we are looking at positive numbers, so our s is positive. Now c has to be the smallest possible, okay, and f has to be the smallest possible naturally. So it is s equal to 0, c is 1, and f is 0. So we are looking at a non-zero number. If we put c equal to 0, then what we get is the number 0. And we don't want that. We are looking at the smallest positive number that can be representable. So we will take c equal to 1 and f is 0. And therefore, the number that we get is 2 power minus 1022 into 1 plus 0. So it's 2 power minus 1022. That is the smallest positive number that we can write, and which is roughly equal to this quantity 0.22251 into 10 power minus 307. So it's that small number that can be written down using our machines. So our machines are indeed very powerful. We said that their capacity is finite, but it's a huge capacity. And so any other number which is smaller than this, so numbers which will occur in our calculation, but they will have magnitude less than this number, they result in what is called an underflow, and they will then be set to 0. So numbers which, for instance, have s equal to 0, c equal to 0, and f equal to 0, that number will be 0. So it will correspond to 2 power minus 1023, because now your c is 0 and you would take 2 power c minus 1023. So that number is considered to be 0 by the machine. And you can also have s equal to 1, c equal to 0, f equal to 0. It's a negative number, but that is also considered to be 0. So 0 has two representations, with s equal to 0 or s equal to 1 and c and f are both taken to the 0. Similarly, there is a number which is the highest, the largest possible number that can be represented, and it is this number, c power 2 power the highest possible thing. So the characteristic c has ones all for all 11 bits, and so that's the exponent 2 power 1023. And then the f also has ones everywhere, and so that is the number which is 1 plus something, 1 plus a very small fraction using 1 by 2 plus 1 by 4 plus 1 by 8 plus 1 by 16, all of those, and that number is 2 power minus 2 power minus 52. So if you add 1 upon 2 power 52 to that particular expansion, you are going to get 2. So that number is represented by this, and anything which is bigger than this, any number which occur in our calculations which have a magnitude higher than this, they will result in what is called an overflow. The machine will be full and it will start to overflow, and it will typically cause the computations to stop. So then the machine will say that it cannot do the computations further. So these are the two extreme possibilities that will happen. And if we want to understand how computer does these calculations, what we will do is that we will mimic the calculations that the computer does, but with our familiar way of using decimal representations instead of the binary ones. So we are going to do calculations in the similar way as a computer will do, but instead of using the binary representations, we will use the decimal expansions. So what we are going to do is that we will use numbers of the form plus minus 0.d1 d2 dk times 10 power n. We are going to use a very similar representation. Remember, we had a very similar representation for the computer digits, where you had either a plus minus sign, then you had 2 power some numbers, and then you had some possibilities of bits. So here what we are going to have is that this d1 has to be positive. So d1 is between 1 and 9. All the di are the decimal digits. So they can be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But we say that d1 has to be positive. D1 is not allowed to be 0. If d1 is 0, we would rather shift the numbers to one side left and put an extra, subtract a 1 from the power of 10. That's how we will do. So to have this unique representation, we will say that d1 needs to be 1 and above, and the other di's can be the usual decimal digits. They can be from 0 to 9. These are the numbers that we are going to use. K is something that we will specify from time to time. Computer says that K is 1 to 52. That's what computer uses, and N is also some fixed digit. But we will say that we will, of course, not go as high as 52, but we will say that we are going to use K equal to 4 or K equal to 5 just to get an idea of how computers will do these calculations. All right. So, for instance, now if I have a positive number, so here I don't have to convert from decimal to binary and binary to decimal back, but because I am going to use only the decimal expansion. So if I have a positive number, so let's not worry about the sign, it's a positive number now, and it has this decimal expansion where my d1 is again 1 onwards, and d1, d2, dk, and dk plus 1, and so on. So it may just go on. And if I want to write such a representation as we have seen in the previous slide, then there are two ways to do it. You could either chop the numbers which are there from dk plus 1, dk plus 2, and so on. You just ignore them completely and write your floating point. This is called a floating point representation for y. So your FLY will then be 0.d1, d2, dk into 10 power n. The 10 power n that we have, that will stay as it is, except the only change that is happening is that dk plus 1 onwards are simply ignored. We just don't take them into our account. This is one way. It's a very valid way of writing numbers, but there is another slightly better way of writing numbers, which is rounding the numbers. There, what we do is that we add something to y. And what we add to y will change dk plus 1 and possibly DK and maybe also the previous ones. And this 5 into 10 power n minus k plus 1 to y. This is the number that we add to y, and after having added this number to y, then chop the result to obtain this floating point representation 0 point delta 1 delta 2 up to delta k into 10 power n. Okay, this is what we are going to do. So this is the way we write our numbers, and where once you have done this, it is quite likely that your n may also change. You will have to worry about it and find examples where this will happen. So for instance, our very familiar number, the pi, if you are looking at 5-digit, chopping off and rounding values of pi, we get two possibilities of the floating point representation. The chopping will give you only 0.31415 into 10. Remember, pi is something like 3.14, 3.14159 actually. So that 9, when rounding, will result in 5 becoming a 6. So when we are chopping the number pi and using only 5-digit numbers, so D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, then chopping will result only in 31415, whereas rounding will result in 31416. So this is how we would do, we would write the numbers in the floating point representation. We will have to tell how many digits we are going to use. Okay. So these approximate way of writing numbers, they are bound to create errors. Definitely there will be errors. So we will actually define, there are two types of errors that we are going to study. So if P is your real number and you write, there is an approximation for P, which we denote by P star, then the absolute error is the magnitude of P minus P star. So it's the difference of P and P star, which is the absolute error, which is the error that we will almost always look at. And this is the error which is called the absolute error, but there is one more type of error, which is the relative error. So it's the absolute error divided by P. Of course, whenever P is non-zero, only then we will look at the relative error. All right. So absolute error is mod P minus P star, and relative error is mod P minus P star upon P whenever P is non-zero. But why do we have two different types of errors? Why is the absolute error not enough? Why is it not good enough for us? So let's see an example. If you have a P, if you have a real number P, which you write as 0.1 into 10 power n, and there is an approximation for that, which is 0.11 into 10 power n, then your absolute error is 0.1 minus 0.11 into 10 power n. So you are going to get it at 0.1 into 10 power n minus 1. If your n is big, then this is a very big error. For instance, if you are writing a check for somebody, and if you wrote, instead of writing rupees 1 lakh, if you wrote rupees 1 lakh 10,000, you are giving away 10,000 rupees extra. That's a big error. Whereas if you were to write a check for rupees 10 and you write a check for rupees 11, it doesn't really seem like a big error. It doesn't really seem like that stupid an error as the error of giving away 10,000 rupees would seem. Okay. But if we look at the relative error in all these cases, it is simply 10 power minus 1. The relative error is always 10 power minus 1. The point of having relative error is that absolute error is always, it can be misleading. Meaning forget about checks and giving rupees and so on. But if you were to compute some length, and instead of computing the length, if you were to compute the approximate length, and if you are using a wrong unit, then your error might seem like a wrong number. Whereas with the correct unit, you are going to modify the things and then it may look like a simpler error. So relative error is important because relative error takes care of the size of the number P. Okay. So for instance, if you were to write instead of kilometers, if you were to use the unit of millimeters, then the error that you have may look like a huge error. Whereas when you convert everything into kilometers, the error may not really look like a big error. So this is the thing which will happen when you are looking at absolute error. It will depend on the unit you are looking at. Whereas relative error does not take the unit that you are using into account. Relative error will take go modulo the unit. So it's simply the ratio of the absolute error upon the relative error. Okay, that's why one looks at relative error and not the absolute error. Okay, so I would like to define one more small bit and then we will stop. So now whenever we have this real number p and we approximate it by this number p star, we would like to know how closely uh, p star is approximating p. And so we define by saying that p star approximates p to t significant digits if t is the largest non-negative integer for which the relative error is less than 5 into 10 power minus t. Okay, so the relative error is going to tell us whether p star approximates p to t significant digits or not. And the reason I gave you in the last slide that absolute error will depend on the unit you are using, whereas relative error goes modulo the unit. The unit is a superfluous information and it can create some problem. So relative error takes care of that, and therefore relative error is a meaningful number that we should look at, and that will tell us whether p star approximates p to t significant digits or not. Okay, so for instance, if I were to approximate 0.5, 0.1 to 4 significant digits, then the maximum approximate error, the maximum absolute error, sorry, there are two decimal digits here, is 0.00005. Whereas if I were to look at 100, then the absolute error that is allowed is 0.05. If I were to look at 1000, then it is 0.5. If I were to look at 10,000, it is simply 5. So the absolute error changes as the number changes. And here, although the absolute error changes, we still have the same number of significant digits of approximation. All right, so the relative error is coming into picture and it tells you that the uh, approximation to 4 significant digits is good and there is some continuity that we see. So for 0.1 we had some number of zeros and then 5. For 100 we have simply 0.05. You multiply 100 by 10, you get 10,000, and then here you get 0.05. This is the precise thing that we should have, because the ratio of this absolute error upon p, that should stay the same. That's what we are looking at. All right. So in the, let me just this is the last slide. So we are going to define how computers will do arithmetic using these floating point numbers. So the addition for computer would be that it would take the floating point representation for x, floating point representation for y, take their addition, and then perform this floating point representation once again. The subtraction is again done in the same way, that it will take the floating point representations, apply the subtraction, and then apply the floating point, take the floating point representation of the result. For addition and subtraction, you may not see much changes. Once you have taken floating point representations, then the actual result that you get and the floating point representation of the result may not differ much. But for product and division, there may be a significant change. Okay, so what this arithmetic does is that it corresponds to performing exact arithmetic on the floating point representations of x and y, and then it converts the exact result to its floating point representation. So we will of course do some problems of this sort in our tutorials, and we will also see some common reasons why errors occur and if there is a way to tackle those errors. So this is where we are going to stop our second lecture. We will see some more such interesting things. Before we end, I would like to give you one more example on why relative error is very important and absolute error is not important. So suppose you have a Facebook page and you routinely post some nice and interesting messages, and suppose there are only 10 people who respond to your posts. But you have a friend where he or she has 50 responses to almost all the pages, to all the posts, say, on an average. And then you might feel bad. You might feel that, oh, I get only 10 responses. There are only 10 people who respond to my posts, whereas this person has 50 responses. But then you should also see how many friends you have on Facebook and how many friends your friend has. So for it may happen that you have only 100 friends, and out of 100, 10 people respond to your posts. That is like 1 by 10 of the total number of friends, Facebook friends you have. Whereas this person has 5,000 friends, the total number that is allowed by Facebook. But out of those 5,000, only 50 respond on his posts. So it's like 1 in 100. So then you will start feeling better. And this is why looking at relative things or looking at things in a relative way is much better. So we will stop at this point and see you in the third lecture. Thank you.